welcome back again here on Morning News today. We're hearing a lot of interesting analysis here in the studio, Xoli, about how we think the former president, will be approaching his testimony there. And of course, he'll know that outside there's a lot of support.
Indeed, Dan, outside of the venue here, it is expected that we're going to have a few hundred people, but of course that is subject to whether or not those crowds will indeed come around as expected. There's been talk that there are people who are going to be bussed from as far as the KwaZulu-Natal province. We know that here in Gauteng, the chairperson of the ANC in the Ekurhuleni region, who's also the mayor of that municipality, Mzwandile Masina, he has said on Twitter that they will be coming out here to try and support the former president. And I haven't caught sight of Mzwandile Masina, but I have seen some of the people that, have been said to be loyal to former President Jacob Zuma. And one of them is Des van Rooyen. He's on the phone, actually, as I speak to you, Dan. I don't know if we could actually just show, Dan, the picture of the former Minister of Finance, Des van Rooyen, of course, albeit for 4 days he was Minister of Finance back in December of 2015. And then beyond that, we saw him being taken, I think it was to the position of Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. So these are just some of the people that I suspect we're going to see here, Dan, over and above the crowds that I suspect are going to be gathered at the Peter Roos Park, and that is the venue where I suspect one of our colleagues, Govan Whittles, is at the moment and is possibly monitoring the situation. Let's try and see if we can connect to Govan Whittles. Govan, can you hear us? What's the situation where you are?
Well, Oli, I'm here outside the main building. That's, of course, where the former president will be entering. But as you said, some supporters of former President Jacob Zuma are expected at the Peter Roos Park. That's just to the left of me, and they haven't started arriving yet. But I have managed to spot at least 2 buses of people that have arrived. Most of them say that they're from the eThekwini region in KwaZulu-Natal, the Durban region. And most of them are young adults saying they were mobilized by the ANC Youth League, some of them mobilized by COSAS, and here to support the former president, Jacob Zuma, as he appears at the State Capture Commission. They're expected to arrive in their numbers after 9 o'clock. That's when some of the radical economic transformation forces say they will start to see a large number of people arriving here at the State Capture Commission. And among them will not only be ANC members, or at least ANC Youth League members from KwaZulu-Natal, but also some ANC members from around Gauteng. We also know some members of the BLF, the Black First Land First Party, which visited former President Jacob Zuma in Nkandla, are here to show their support. They're expected to arrive at any moment. But for now, what you see behind me is the entrance where former President Jacob Zuma will be coming in. A lot of anticipation here, and it seems as if the security is only getting tighter as we approach that hour when the former president will arrive. You mentioned Des van Rooyen, that's already there. We also know Kebi Mapatwe and, of course, Carl Niehaus, staunch ally of former President Jacob Zuma, already inside the venue where the former president will be appearing. It still seems as if it's a little bit early, and the crowds, the big number of people that were expected haven't arrived yet. There have been some bold estimations as to how many people will be arriving here. Some people saying thousands, but from those who have already arrived, they say they should get around 500 people that will be making their way here to show their support for the former president. So things haven't gotten underway yet, but they're expected to in a short while.
Govan, let's try and see if we can prolong the conversation between you and I. Talk to me about the outfits, if you like, of the people that came in in those two buses that you say come from the eThekwini region, are they in ANC regalia? Of course, this is not a court process, Govan, let's be clear about that. It's a commission of inquiry. But the ANC has been seeking to put a distance between itself and some of its leaders who are accused of corruption, because the party has suffered image-wise in as far as corruption. What are those people dressed in, and what do they have to say about the ANC's rules that the party regalia should not be worn when supporting someone who faces serious allegations of corruption?
Well, they certainly are treading a fine line. Most of them wrapped up with warm clothing. They arrived here before dawn at around 4 a.m. and have been sitting in the buses parked off near the Peter Ruas Park, waiting to get out. But not all of them are wearing casual clothing. Some of them are wearing ANC regalia, albeit not T-shirts with the former president's face on it, but the usual ANC flags that we see some of the party members wearing around election time and to their rallies. They are treading a fine line, but the ANC hasn't put out a statement ahead of the former president's appearance here, instructing its members not to appear or wear any clothing. The young people that I spoke to a bit earlier outside of the bus, they say that they don't think that they won't be allowed to display the party regalia as they show up in support of former President Jacob Zuma. They certainly haven't received that instruction from the people who organized the buses for them to come from KwaZulu-Natal, but they're not saying much about that either. At this point, they're keeping mum. They wouldn't answer questions about who was paying for those buses or exactly who's behind the mobilization of the people to come to the State Capture Commission, only saying that we should wait a while and we might see a lot more people with ANC regalia showing up here at the Peter Ruas Park and outside the State Capture venue. Of course, it's not only members of the ANC that have come out to support former President Jacob Zuma. We're also expecting the Concerned South Africans group, which has rallied behind the former president in the past, to come out in their numbers to show support. They, of course, are only a lobby group with very small numbers, similar to the BLF, and we really do expect the members of the ANC or supporters of the ANC from KwaZulu-Natal to make up the majority of the contingent that will be here to support the former president. They're not shy about wearing their ANC regalia, or at least some of them are hiding it for now. It's a bit chilly out here, but the sun is getting out and they say that they'll display it proudly if needs be. Of course, they've been cordoned off. The Peter Ruas Park is pretty much being guarded and surrounded by the police, so it would be difficult for them to make their voices heard all the way here at the State Capture Commission, considering the distance between the building and the park. Of course, it's being separated by a fueling station and an intersection, but they're adamant that they would be able to make their voices heard, and some of their representatives are, of course, already inside. Carl Niehaus and Kebi Mapatwe among them. So whether or not Mapatwe and Niehaus will be among those addressing the supporters, as Niehaus did in KwaZulu-Natal when the former president appeared in court, remains to be seen, but it certainly is expected. We're also hearing that some of the other prominent ANC leaders, such as former Northwest Premier Supra Mahumapelo or even former Minister Faith Mutambe, might be among those that would want to come and show their support for the president, but that's not yet confirmed. For now, we are awaiting the former president's convoy here at the entrance of the State Capture Commission.
All right, Govan Whittles, thank you very much from outside the venue of the State Capture Inquiry. Dan, as I hand back over to you, I don't know how much of an interest or how much time you can afford us, because I've just been joined by Carl Niehaus. He's with the MKMVA. Perhaps he's one person who might explain just some of the people that are going to be coming out here to support the former president, but only if you have time, Dan.
No, Xoli, I think we must take it live. I mean, we are on a rolling coverage now on ENCA of the appearance for the first time at the Commission of Inquiry of the former President Jacob Zuma. And Carl Niehaus has been one of those steadfast supporters of the former president. So please, go ahead, Mr. Mgambi, speak to Carl Niehaus.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your indulgence, Dan. Mr. Niehaus, thank you very much for joining us. Please, if you could just pick up the mic so that you're able to hear the viewers, or the viewers are able to hear you. Talk to us about why you've decided to come here, and in fact, in what capacity are you here? Are you here in your capacity as MKMVA leader, or are you here in your individual support for the former President Jacob Zuma?
Well, good morning. I'm here in my capacity as an individual member of the African National Congress and also of Umkhonto we Sizwe Military Veterans Association. MKMVA has been supporting President Jacob Zuma throughout the process of his trial and also for his appearance at this hearing. But we do so in a manner that says comradeship in friendship, acknowledging that he was one of the most illustrious commanders of Umkhonto we Sizwe, and MKMVA simply says we do not leave a fellow soldier behind on the battlefield. But, and I must emphasize this, our presence here is not an attack or pressure on the Commission on state capture. We support the establishment of the Commission. The African National Congress was centrally involved in the establishment of the Commission, but we emphasize that the Commission must do its work in a free and fair manner, not allow itself to be selective in who they bring and hear, and not allowing any political factionalism to creep anywhere into the work of the Commission.
We're going to come to those allegations that have been actually forwarded by the former president against this commission. But talk to us about other figures like yourself. I saw you walking in with the former minister Des Van Rooyen. Are there any other people that you are aware of? Any leaders of the ANC that are expected here that we might not see, at least for now?
Oh yes, there will be many leaders of the African National Congress here. Amongst them is the president of MKMVA, Mr. Kebi Mapatsu. Also I saw Mr. Spielman, the mayor of Welkom here. I also believe that the former premier of the Northwest Province, Supra Moamapelo, will be here, and many others. Faith Mutambe had indicated that she will come. But I do not know exactly who everyone is who will be here, but there will be a wide array of leaders, not just from the African National Congress, but also from various society organizations. I met this morning with the leadership of the Radical Economic Transformation champions from KwaZulu-Natal, who traveled all the way, right throughout the night, in buses.
Apparently there are buses that are coming from that province. How many buses are expected?
Well, there are several buses coming. Again, it is difficult for me to tell you exactly how many buses and how many people will come, because the way in which we deliberately organized the attendance of people who wanted to support President Zuma was to say to various organizations that they, in their individual capacities, can organize, and we just lay hands on a rather loose footing, because we do not want to impose on anyone. This is a situation where people come forward because of their support for the president and also because of their support for the cause of radical economic transformation, which we see as being in tandem with what is happening with President Jacob Zuma.
Mr. Niehaus, just a final question to you around the issue that you've raised, that this commission should not allow itself to be used for political agendas. The former president has already made that point clear, that this commission is biased against him, and that it certainly does not want to allow him time or even give him questions about what it is that he's going to come and talk here about. Talk to us about this apprehension, this worry that it might allow itself to be used for political point scoring. Why is there this apprehension from people like yourself who support the former president?
I think it starts with how the commission came about. You will remember that the Commission's mandate was derived from the report of the previous public protector, which was the report on the capture of state. Now, that's a very narrow mandate, concentrating on a very small part of our history and on particular issues.
Mr. Nihouse, I'm going to have to interject there, because I think we've passed that stage of how far back should this commission go in terms of investigating state capture.
No, but the point I'm just making is that you cannot investigate state capture if you don't understand the whole history. Now let me come to the issue that you have raised, and that issue is that there is a poisoned atmosphere that had been created against President Zuma in the media. I have a sense that there are many of the media houses that have already found President Jacob Zuma guilty and want him sentenced. Last night I sat with one of the associate editors of the Daily Maverick, who said he believes President Zuma should be arrested in prison right now. He was not talking about due process. He was expressing a biased view against President Zuma and many of those of us who are associated with him. And that problem is based on the manner in which the media has been publishing allegations and often lies against President Zuma without verification.
The commission. We're talking about your worries about this commission being used for political point scoring. Is there any indication of that thus far, or is it your mission to try and tarnish this particular commission of inquiry in order to turn it into a political
No, it's not my mission to tarnish the commission, because as a member of the ANC, I understand that the ANC was directly involved in the formation of this commission, and we support the commission. But we are saying the climate in which the commission works is problematic because of the way in which the media had created that atmosphere. That's the first thing. Secondly, the sincere call that we make on the commission is not to be in any manner whatsoever selective in terms of the issues that it deals with, but to deal with all the issues around the question of state capture in a fair and even-handed manner.
This commission, this commission, Mr. Nihouse, is led by...
what I want to say. This week is going to be critical in terms of how we're going to perceive how the commission deals also with the issues with regards to President Jacob Zuma. So I hope, I sincerely hope, that the Commission will deal with it in an even-handed manner. A very heavy responsibility is lying on the shoulders of Mr. Justice Zondo to make sure that not even the slightest doubt can be raised against him and the Commission on how he and the Commission do their work.
And that's the person I want to talk to you about, because that person is the Deputy Chief Justice of the judiciary in this entire country. Surely you must have some kind of confidence in him leading a credible process. Well, has he shown any inkling that he might be swayed by political interests?
I have confidence in Mr. Justice Zondo as part of the judiciary. I have a concern about the mandate that he has been given to implement, and it comes back to the issue of the narrowness of the mandate of this commission, and whether that narrow mandate of the commission doesn't place him in a situation where unfortunately he will end up being selective in how he deals with the issue of state capture, and in that way the judiciary and he himself unfortunately can become tainted. That is his challenge, and that is a challenge he will have to address with all the ability that he has as a judge, and I trust in that ability.
Carl Nihouse, talk to us about whether or not you expect any of the heads of the ANC top six, for example, are likely to pitch up here. I'm thinking Ace Magashule. I'm told that the former president on Friday, he actually may have paid a courtesy visit to the ANC Secretary General's office. What was that meeting about, if indeed it did take place?
You're quite correct that President Zuma paid a visit to the Secretary General of the ANC, and there was nothing strange about that.
What was the meeting about?
They are friends, they are fellow comrades. We meet all the time. So there is nothing strange. I hate the situation where people try to read all kinds of innuendo in terms of comrade meeting each other. I see Comrade Ace Magashule on a daily basis because I work with him. I see President Jacob Zuma regularly. I see President Cyril Ramaphosa regularly. I see Paul Mashitile and many of the other top 6 regularly. Now, one cannot deduct anything else but that comrades are meeting and that comrades are sharing. I do not know who from the top 6 will be coming to visit. I cannot preempt that. There is a possibility, I suspect, that the Secretary General of the ANC, Comrade Ace Magashule, may come, but that is the decisions of those individuals, and whether they come or not should not be seen in any way as indicating anything about the relationship between themselves and President Jacob Zuma.
Kalni House, thank you very much for giving us your time. It's given us a sense. Thank you very much. I'll borrow that microphone from you. All right, so that's the situation here. Kalni House just telling us just the number of leaders of the ANC that are going to make it here. He's mentioned Supra Maumapilo as one of the people who might just turn up here. So Marcel, as I hand back to you, that's the sum total of at least the anticipation that we have been building up to here. The former president, Jacob Zuma, his convoy, we have yet to spot it. We do have our colleague, Govan Whittle, who's outside the venue. He will bring us those pictures as and when the former president makes his way into this Commission of Inquiry. Marcel.
Thank you so much. Xoli Nkambi coming to us live there from Parktown here in Johannesburg.